one on the agenda, and it is the Renton Municipal Court State of the Court Address. And we have Judges Kara Murphy-Richards
Jason, I can't hear
and
you.
Judge Jessica Ganere with us to do the presentation.
Well, we are thrilled, and I know Mr. Van Bailey was hoping to be here as well.
Recording in progress.
I will introduce us. I am Judge Kara Murphy-Richards. I've been here officially since December of 2019, thanks to all of you and our previous mayor. And to my right is Judge Jessica Ganere, who joined me in April of 2021. And behind me is the amazing Bonnie Woodrow, who is our Judicial Administrative Officer. I think both of us have indicated we feel really, really comfortable if you just call us Jessica and Kara. Is it okay if they call you Bonnie? Okay, it's okay. So please, in terms of keeping this as casual as possible, we want to know that that feels completely comfortable to us. So we're very, very happy to be here tonight. For some of you, you've heard presentations about the court before. Some of you may not have, so we're hoping to cover most of what we do with you this evening. So I'll turn the floor over to Jessica.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And it's just a pleasure to be here with all of you this evening. And we're grateful for the chance to share with you some of what we've been working so diligently on with the court for our city. And we would be remiss if we did not begin by introducing you to sort of the larger picture of our court. We are much, much more than the three of us that are here with you tonight. In addition to the three of us, we also have 14 full-time staff members, and they are pictured here at their finest in our slides. And they're an incredible part of the work and the service that we do as a court. And within our own team, we are always looking to identify ways that we can create unity in a hybrid environment. And you're going to hear a little bit more later in our presentation about the importance of technology in our courts and the growing need. I know we're all experiencing that in our community, in our world recently, but we are always looking for opportunities to be innovative in the way that we conduct our staff. And so one of the couple of the ways that we've done that we'll get to share with you tonight are our weekly team leadership meetings, and we're able to do that either in person or we can also do that virtually, and that's a great opportunity for us at the leadership level to get together and to engage meaningfully on delivering the best possible services to our court users, to our staff, and in turn to our community. We also have bi-weekly huddles, is what we call them, with our team, and those are just short 20-minute meetings, and we found by having short meetings consistently, these are meetings that are driven by the burning topics and the things that are most important to our staff. We have the opportunity to be very quickly responsive to needs as they arise. So those are some of our priorities.
I'm making sure the same slides are up here. You'll love the way we dress. Some of these dress themes are actually quite entertaining. We've not been doing it recently because when you come downstairs to see two people dressed up in a theme, it looks a little bizarre. When you see all 17 people, it makes sense to you. About 3 or 4 years ago, a couple of members of the staff came and said, we'd like to try doing something every month where the team works together to celebrate a different heritage. On our staff, we have people from Moldova, we have people who are American Indian, we have people from all different cultures and backgrounds. And they said, what if every month we use the National Heritage Calendar and we celebrate that month's heritage? So about 4 years ago, every month we started doing that. February, for example, was Women's History Month, African American History Month. June was Pride, Caribbean. July was French. November, American Indian, and December was all of the different holidays that people celebrate in December. So the staff took that on as a project, and every month there was a small group of staff members who took responsibility for creating a display. On one of the slides here, you'll see one of our displays from Black History Month. Another, you may see one of our dress-ups from one of them. So there's a display that's up all month. That same group of people also plans an activity for the staff surrounding that particular Heritage Month. So it might be a trivia game we do. It may be an art project. We make dream catchers, for example. And then we have one meal that represents the heritage of that month as well. And so that is something that people really came to look forward to. I mention that because some of you have been down to the 3rd floor and wonder what that amazing, amazing smell was. In July, the last year that we had this, Mr. Janier, related to Mrs. Janier, next to us, came in and did a homemade crepes. crepes bar for us for celebrating French month. So that's really important for us. Not only does it engage our staff, but it really creates an environment of inclusivity that's very important to us. COVID. In March of 2020, we all shut down for 2 weeks. That's how long we thought we were going to be gone. Remember, we were back in a week, maybe a few days, maybe a couple of weeks. And it wasn't long before we heard we're not going to be back in regular business for a really long time. And while some companies can handle that kind of news, when you provide access to justice to members of the community, you cannot afford to go on pause for that long. You've got to find a way to allow business to continue as usual. You've got to find a way to show the community that you are in fact essential, which is what we were. And so very, very quickly, we had to jump into action to figure out how are we going to make court available to people who can't leave their homes. And although we are in a bit of a dispute with another neighboring jurisdiction about who was actually first to offer all of their court calendars virtually, I believe it was us. They believe it was them. I'm bigger than them, but we'll do it. We just agreed to let it be a tie. But I would say within a matter of weeks from our shutdown, we were already offering all of our calendars via Zoom. We had already continued business as normal, which we were very, very proud of being able to do. The other thing that we were able to do, the other reason we were able to do things so seamlessly is, if you've not heard of it, come talk to us sometime about it. But our software platform is called OCourt. It's the program that we use for all of our forms. Bonnie is one of the pioneers of the OCourt forms in the state of Washington. They're now used by 40% of the caseloads in our state. And by having that kind of digital platform, it allowed us to continue seamlessly to do virtual proceedings, which other courts could not pull off. And then when things began to open back up, the question was, do we go back to the way things were, or do we find a better way of doing business? Is it really fair to have someone take off a minimum wage job for 4 hours to come and save $37 on a traffic ticket? Is it really fair to ask somebody to get childcare and take 4 buses to get to a courthouse simply to have their case continued to a new court date? And so we sat down as a leadership team and with all of our shareholders, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, and said, how can we go back and provide access to justice in a way that those who need to be in person, because they might not be going home maybe that day, they may be taken into custody because of warrants or because of criminal activity, and those who can appear virtually, and that doesn't do anything to deny their access. And so we have now, I think we've refined pretty well our hybrid model. People can always come in person if they want to. If they don't want to, they can appear virtually. And the other thing that the court was able to accomplish, thanks to Jessica, is for the last 2 years, perhaps closer to 3 years, she's been working with the King County Library System to find a way that our customers, our court customers, can go to a local library and say, I have a court hearing. We have a library staff member who hands them a laptop dedicated to our court, a pair of headphones dedicated to our court, and a private room dedicated to our court. They're able to escort those people back into this private room, get them set up on their equipment, and shut the door so they have privacy. And so now we're not asking someone to get here from Skyway. We're saying go to the local Skyway library. And so I know that's something that Jessica's super proud of, but it's something that has really, really, really removed a lot of barriers to people getting to court.
And likely by now you have the sense that removing barriers is a top priority for us. And one of the ways overwhelmingly that we see to do that is through the use of technology. And technology has so many applications for us as a court. Not only has it been able to help us facilitate happier staff who now have telework opportunities. And I will say, if you've had any involvement in the criminal justice or the court system or any experience, you're very familiar with the concept that working from home is something that was unheard of for anyone in the court system, even just 3 years ago. But now it's an opportunity that we can create for our staff. And we have noticed as a result, we have an improvement in our staff's productivity and their overall job satisfaction, which helps us to keep these really motivated, really committed employees for long term and to help them foster their career goals. We've also found that our virtual court access, that Kara was just talking about, the ability to attend your hearing on Zoom or to come in person if you would like to do so, helps us to reduce COVID-19 exposure along with the other viruses and bugs that we share with each other day in and day out as members of a community. And not only helps us to maintain a healthy staff, but a healthy community. as well. We have the opportunities for individuals to call into the court and conduct their business over the phone. They can now also submit court documents in writing and get a written ruling back in writing, as well as to submit them via email, electronic court form, or as I said, to show up for their in-person or virtual hearings. And our goal is always to make our court system accessible. We are a public service. We're acutely aware of that every single day. And we want to make sure that those in our community, whether they're a court user who is charged with a crime or an alleged victim of a crime, have the opportunity to meaningfully engage with the services that we provide. One of the other mechanisms that we have created and we're very proud of is our remote jury selection process. And this is something that we have been quite committed to maintaining. Many other of our fellow jurisdictions, once doors started opening again to courthouses, I don't want to say post-COVID, as we know we're still in the flux of that, but as the virus became slightly more predictable or more controlled, was to get rid of this idea of remote jury selection and just bring our jurors back in. And we said, we really like this virtual jury selection process because, as Kara was saying earlier, it gives more individuals the opportunity to report in and to do their civic duty, and it removes some of those barriers that previously existed to jury service. You no longer have to find several days of childcare or elder care in your family to take an entire day off of your job so that you can report in for jury service. Now you can do that by remote accessing via Zoom the virtual courtroom and participating in the jury selection process that way. Once our 7 jurors, are selected out of sometimes a pool of up to 30 people, then they can report in person. And there's a big difference between bringing 7 people in versus making 30 people come in and spend their day. Virtual appearances for those individuals who are also incarcerated has been a significant priority for us as well. Previously, prior to our capabilities of conducting court on Zoom, if an individual, for example, was incarcerated in the Department of Corrections and maybe had an outstanding warrant that person wanted to take care of, that warrant can be an impediment to that individual accessing a lot of services, a lot of resources, and a lot of those unfortunately are restorative resources that they're wanting to engage in. Now these individuals can actually log in via Zoom to Renton Municipal Court, have their case addressed virtually, and then they are able to fully engage with their recovery and their rehabilitation process. And last, we have our virtual courtroom introduction video that we are very proud to be launching in the coming weeks. And this is a project that our staff have been working very hard on. This will be an introduction video that's played at the beginning of every court calendar, and the goal is to inform court users of what to expect. Oftentimes, especially if you're not familiar with the court system or with our court system, interacting with the justice system can be quite intimidating. So this will be an opportunity to set the tone for the dignity and the decorum of the courtroom, to explain to people, how do you use a Zoom function within the context of a court setting, and to help facilitate a smoother courtroom process.
It's also a super good reminder, we're closed to court. We're closed to court. You would have no idea how often we say, please shut off your video, Mr. Smith, and get some clothes on and then log back on. Because people are eating breakfast, smoking a cigarette, have no shirt on, and they say, oh, I'm really sorry. But we started kind of getting to a place in Zoom meetings and court meetings and other things where people started getting a little bit too informal, right? And the court system is one place where they should be serious about where they're. I'm gonna have you come sit next to me, Councilmember Albertson, because it's kind of scary what we see. Oh yeah, we know what event looks like in a room, if you know what I'm saying. We know. No, we've learned. I know you're going to watch our faces light up at certain parts of our presentation because there are things. We both love everything about our program, but we each have our babies that are super important to us. And all of you know, most of you know, I've given presentations before. Renton Municipal Community Court is my baby. And I am so incredibly thankful for the opportunity to be in a city where the leadership shares and has goals that are aligned with the court in terms of how we serve people. And so for those of you who've not heard too much about community court, very, very, very in general, it is an opportunity for nonviolent crimes to be diverted through a social service type of structure for the ultimate dismissal of the charges. Okay, so that's the ultimate procedural mechanism that gets people involved. They come in because ultimately they get their charges dismissed. In the past, when you thought of diversion, you thought of, if you go off to social services, you divert this way, never to be seen by the court system again. And people who didn't want help diverted to the right, to the court system and jail in all the punitive ways. This is the perfect marriage between accountability and restorative justice. It's the perfect marriage between, if you say, Mr. Smith, Ms. Thompson, if you say the reason you keep stealing from Walmart is because you're addicted to heroin, okay, let's be honest about that. Have you ever had a chance to get treatment before? No, judge, I haven't. Well, are you willing to get treatment? So it's a way to say to someone, very few people are committing crimes because they just feel like it. Most people we deal with, they're homeless, they're mentally ill, they're addicted to drugs, they're housing unstable. There's all kinds of reasons. And we are able to access the services that they need in community court, but we're still able to maintain accountability. And I want to talk about that for a second before I turn it over to Jessica for the next slide. But we have with us every Thursday, and I'm just going to leave it sitting here for someone to hand out later. I brought a list of all the resources that are in our virtual resource center every Thursday. Community court meets every Thursday at 10:30. From 10:30 to 12:30, we're on the record, checking in with everybody, seeing how they're doing, asking if their basic needs are being met. Are they safe? Do they have safe housing? From 12:30 to 1:30, they then log in and we have virtual resources available that include food, clothing, shelter. Always the first 3 questions we ask everybody every week. Do you have food? Do you have clothing? Do you have shelter? The clothing question by now is obvious to us, Councilman Albertson, we see. But we want to know, do you have a safe place to live right now? Because if we don't have those 3 things covered, what else we have to offer you doesn't matter, right? We have substance abuse disorder providers, 3 or 4 of them now. We have mental health providers, 3 of them now. We have veteran services. We have public health department. We have DSHS. And we now have 3 local colleges, Renton Tech, Lake Washington Technical Institute, and Bellevue College. They come help people learn how about job training, help people fill out the FAFSA. If you've ever filled out a FAFSA application for your children, I don't drink, but I would drink if I had to do that again. It is not, and imagine taking someone who doesn't have any support trying to navigate that process. So they help identify scholarships, they help get them involved in college. And so I will tell you, of all the community court participants that we've had since July of last year, we've had 1 person reoffend. He's no longer in the program. He was removed from the program because if you commit new law violations, you're out. And the law violation he committed was living in a vehicle with his spouse with an active no contact order that had been issued many, many years ago that they had not been able to get far away to get recalled. I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm saying it's not a man who went out and committed his 38th theft case. It was a guy who said, in the midst of this rainstorm, I don't want to sleep on the ground and my wife doesn't want to sleep on the ground. We're going to sleep in the car together. And the police knocked on the window and did a welfare check. The city that he was stopped in charged him, and we have the program. We need to mean it when we say, if you continue to pick up law violations, you lose this privilege. So the issue of accountability is this. When you are on social media, I don't comment on social media very often, but I think it's important to keep our pulse on it. The Nextdoor app, the I Love Renton Facebook page, we have members of our community who are super, super vocal about their perception that there's no longer accountability in the city for committing crime. I don't believe that's completely accurate. I think what happens is you get your packages stolen, you look on the local jail registry 2 days later, and your package pirate's not in jail like you thought they were, and you think they just got off scot-free. What you may not know is that that same person, over a history of many years, gets 5 days in jail, 7 days in jail, 10 days in jail. And as soon as he or she is released from jail, waiting right around the corner for them is their first needle, their first hit of this, their first, I don't know, all the hits, joints, smokes, everything they need to get back on the path they were on, right? So we ask people, do you want to spend 5 days in jail, or do you really want to get help? Because if you agree to get help, we're going to let you out to get help, but we're going to make a deal. If you don't follow through, you're going to get 30 days. And they're like, it's a deal. I said, it always sounds like a good deal the day you want out of jail, but we mean it. And when they come back and they haven't followed through and we say, what did you promise if you didn't follow through? Well, I promised 30 days. Well, how about 20? Thank you so much. And the jail guards are like, they did not realize they could have gotten 5. And they're celebrating 20, but they're celebrating 20 after they owned their plan. And so when I have the opportunity, and I know when Jessica has the opportunity to speak in the community, which I think both of us would welcome doing a lot more often than we currently do, it's really important our community understand this. It's not, people are not getting off scot-free. We're trying to avoid this revolving door that we've been using for years that's not been working. And so if you want to hear more about community court, if you want to, in that picture that my son said, why is the guy with the orange prison suit? And that's not a prison suit, that's his track suit. And he's Jamelvin, and he's the loveliest person. And Jamelvin relapses about every 3 or 4 weeks. He struggles, and he comes in, and you know he's relapsed because he's crying. And he walks in, and he says, I just don't want to disappoint you. You're the only judge who ever cared about me. You're the only one who ever said I could do this. Same to his attorney. So it is a really, really, really fabulous program. I would invite you to come check it out sometime, but I would more encourage you to please, when you see those comments, when you meet those community members and they feel like accountability is out the window, please assure them that's not the case. And anyway, that's my baby. Sorry, that's my baby. Yeah.
And just to sort of follow up with what Kara says, we believe that accountability, it doesn't have to begin with your first contact with the criminal justice system. We have so many programs and enrichments and mechanisms to reach the young people in our community so that they can learn that very precious balance of accountability, but empowerment with our criminal justice system from an early age. And so I'm very proud of our Renton Municipal Court Youth Traffic Court program. And that is the very goal and the very purpose. And oftentimes people could look at traffic court cases and infractions and think, well, that's not as serious as a theft. But we have to understand that for a young person to get a $136 ticket can really be life impacting for them. It's not just the cost of the ticket, it's the insurance rate that their family might face. They might not be able to drive. We have to remember we have a lot of working students in our community who are working to support their families, and their family is dependent on that student to be able to drive to and from work so that they can pay their rent each month. And so this is a program that was designed not just to give leadership opportunities, which is what we really do foster in this program for our young drivers, for our youth in our community, but also to give restorative options for our young drivers in our community, and to balance that with making our community whole with accountability, but also with education, so that this is a driver that's not going to go back out and maybe be texting while they're driving again, or be speeding through the school zone on their way to or from school or work. So the concept of the Youth Traffic Court is twofold. Number one, it is a court that's run entirely by Renton High School students. They are the court. They are the judge. They are the bailiff. We don't have attorneys, we have advocates, but they are the advocates. They are the jurors. So they get to work with the driver, prepare the case in advance of the hearing, and they get to come together in a restorative justice circle and decide what is fair to the community, what is fair to the driver, and then they set out conditions for the driver. I will say sometimes their conditions can be much harsher than if the driver went through the mainstream adult calendar, but the driver is also able to give input, and they have to agree to what's fair before it can be assigned as a condition. So everybody's in agreement about what's fair. And my role in this process is to be there as a facilitator. So I'm there as a support to our young people, to answer questions for them about procedure, or to give guidance about what our state law would say about youth traffic court. But other than that, it's entirely in their hands. And when the driver is assigned their conditions, they agree to a 6-month contract that they are going to complete the conditions that the youth traffic court sets out for them. And if they do that at the end of the 6 months, they get their infraction dismissed. Their family doesn't have to pay that $136 ticket, and they have the chance to keep that offense from being reported on their driving history and having all of those potential negative consequences that can impact their family. Now, on the flip side, if they don't satisfy those conditions within the 6 months, they're going to go back to the adult mainstream calendar, and they're going to be looking at having an infraction committed on their record and all of the potential consequences that can result from that. So again, it's an opportunity to really balance youth empowerment and leadership in our community, to foster positive associations with our justice system, but also to maintain accountability and the safe roads that we all want to travel on. And I get the opportunity to talk next about, as much as I love our youth traffic court program. I'm also deeply committed to our mental health calendars. And this is a new program that is we're preparing to launch in the coming weeks. And what the mental health calendars are aimed to do is to consolidate all of our cases that we experience here in Renton that involve mental health concerns into one calendar. And the purpose for that is twofold. Number one, it's intended to give consistency in services. So you have one judge, and that's purpose number two, to give consistency in judge. And we know that therapeutic courts work best when the participants who are involved have the consistency with the judge. And Kara shared a very touching story about Jamelvin, and it's in fact true. I know that when I have the opportunity to cover for her, she's very rarely, it's just a couple of times it's ever happened, and when I have the opportunity, she's very missed by her court participants. But it's the same concept when working with mental health calendars, is to give the attorneys and to give the court users that consistency in the judge that's hearing their cases. And this is quite clearly in response to the mental health crisis that we don't see diminishing at any point soon. We know for a variety of reasons, individuals are suffering from enormous obstacles to getting mental health treatment. We see that reflected in our numbers. And the goal is to create and build bridges and opportunities for individuals to be connected with services and to ensure that those whose mental health is restored as a result of access to these services are held accountable for their offenses. And it's important to emphasize the needs in the mental health calendars. These are different needs than those who are progressing through the Renton Municipal Community Court program. So this is an entirely different population of individuals. The focus is strictly on those who have mental health obstacles that they are working on gaining access to resources for. So it's a very different set of individuals. And it poses a different set of challenges, but nevertheless, we think that creating and connecting them to services is really going to overall benefit not just their lives and their health, but our communities as well.
Yep. Not everyone feels this way, but I always really feel like it's great when you work with someone who's smarter than you. Because when you work with someone who's smarter, I'm pretty smart, but when you work with someone who's smarter than you, not only are they better for your organization, but they're better for you. And so Jessica's not letting you know her brilliance right now, by the way. The mental health cases that she's talking about, those are the people who are evaluated to determine if they even understand what they've been charged with, if they're even able to assist their attorney. These are really heartbreaking, very sad cases. And then if they aren't able to appreciate the nature of the proceedings, the next question is, do we require them to wait 50, 60, 70 days to get transported down to Western State Hospital, where they may or may not be restored? It is a very, very complicated area of the law. It is a very ever-changing area of the law. And because there's so many things we have to stay up to date on, so many laws that come out that we have to be aware of, I just think there's only a couple in the state of judges who have taken on this kind of leadership of a mental health calendar. And so I'm going to spotlight her, even though she won't do it herself. Judge Geip from Kent, Judge Finkel from King County, and Judge Jessica Jenner from Renton. When anybody in the state has a question about mental health ability to proceed, whether or not to order restoration, she is one of the three judges in the state who gets called on. So I didn't tell her I was going to say that, but I needed to say it. I need it because it is, anybody who's threatened by people who are smarter than them, no, you want to be with people who are smarter than you. Community connections. Well, see, now that I've talked about how smart she is, she just ran for the state board in only her second year as a sitting judge. She ran for the state District and Municipal Court Judges Association board. She said, I'm going to put my name in the hat because I really, really care about the courts. I really care about access to justice. Someone with 20 years of experience is going to run against me. She's our new board member because it's obvious around the state that she's passionate about what she does. She also sits on the state's diversity board. I am very fortunate to sit on the state's therapeutic courts board. And the two of us each Friday facilitate it used to be called Chew and Stew because it was an informal lunch gathering of judges. It's become very formal now because we have it started off with 5 of us getting together on Zoom every Friday and trying to staff cases and problem solve. And now there's 23 judges who insist on being part of our Cool Kids group. And so now it's the MJBR, Municipal Judges Breakout Room. Apparently giving it a formal name lends more credibility to it. So we are now our own organization. And so those are some of the ways that we are very, very involved in our own professional community. One of the ways we stay involved in our local community and its services is if you've been to the court recently, you may see a young man named Devin Moore. He's from Pier Kent, which is part of the Pier Washington program. I know some of you are already familiar with the Pier Washington program. 2 years ago, Devin was homeless. His street name was Demo for Devin Moore. He was doing drugs and he had no family. He decided one day when he got booked for a new charge that he was done living his life this way. He asked a colleague of ours in Seattle Municipal Court, please don't let me out. I know exactly where I'm going to go when you let me out. I want help. I can't live like this anymore. The judge agreed to hold him, which is always a tough call to make because the score is not a hotel. We understand that. But we do have people who are ready to change who beg us not to let them go right away. He ended up getting out, going through treatment, becoming a volunteer, coming on as a part-time staff member, and now he is a peer navigator. We got a call several months ago saying we just got a grant to assign a full-time navigator to a local court. We would like Renton to consider that person because Renton is the court whose goals align with those of our program. And that was a humongous compliment to us. So we sat down with the director. We talked to her a little bit about what our objectives are, what our judicial philosophies are. And we thought we were going to ease into it, Bonnie, because we were going to ease into it. We thought it'd be like several months, but we got an email at 1 o'clock in the morning one night saying, congratulations, we've hired someone. He's excited to start in Renton. He'll be there next Monday. And I didn't want to say no because we were so excited, but she was on vacation, which she never takes. And so we said, sure. So when she came back from vacation, we had someone new sitting on our floor. But it's fabulous. And we can talk about this. We would love to come back another day and talk about this. We shared a little bit with Mary Jane Van Cleve earlier today. But he's available to anybody in the city. Don't have to be court involved. Anybody in the city who needs services, anybody in the city who needs someone to help navigate them through the process, he's available to them. So those are some of the connections in the community that I'm highlighting. And then you've got some really exciting ones.
I do. Well, we are very honored to be guests here this evening with you, but we are also very honored. We have, if you can believe it, sometimes a much more, shall we say, free speaking environment, which is classrooms in our communities. We get asked some very difficult questions from our classrooms within the Renton School District, but we are honored guests in our city's classrooms as well. We have a couple of events that we have actually created here as programs through Renton Municipal Court that are available for all of our schools here in the Renton School District, and we do encourage those who are involved and participants in their local school to please reach out because we would love to extend these opportunities to as many classrooms as possible. One of those programs is our Constitution Day program. National Constitution Day is September 17th every year. We try to get as close to September 17th, but we're not going to bring kids in on weekends, and I think their teachers are appreciative of that. So we do, this year it'll be on September 16th, and we actually go out into classrooms and we explain to students in the Renton School District that as their judges, we have two really, really important responsibilities. Number one is to help keep them safe, and number two is to protect their due process rights, and that we take both of those jobs really seriously. We have a little bit of fun with them as well. We do have youth-size judges' robes that we take into their classrooms, and they get to try on these little robes and they get to be the judge, and we bring sets of problems to them and they get to problem solve and try to experience what is it like to be a judge, and they are very good at it. So you would be amazed. Our other programs that we have are criminal justice classroom visits. So I get to go out and Kara does as well into our local high schools. That's where some of the really tough questions come, but we like that challenge and we're always honored to be there. But we get to do high school classroom visits for either their criminal justice classes, civics classes, and explain what is the role of a court. What do we do? What do we think about things? And those are wonderful visits, but we also get to welcome classes into our courtrooms. We believe deeply that the work that we do is a public service Courtrooms belong to our community. They belong to the public, and that begins from the time that you enter our school system, even before that, all the way up into adulthood. And so we get to play host to mock trials. We have classroom field trips where they get to tour our courtrooms and ask questions and get to sit up in our chairs and experience what our view is like on a day-to-day basis. And we're very, very honored to be able to work cooperatively with our schools in order to make these programs happen.
So you guys, there's some 6th and 7th grade attorneys, they would blow your mind. Like their legal and analytical abilities. It is, you sometimes want to say to your own attorneys, like, did you prepare your case like our 4th grade class did yesterday? Because they were on it. And I think you took one of your teams to state. I think you took one of your teams to the state championship. We talked a little bit about accountability. I don't want to hammer that word to death, but I think it's so important. One of the other things we did, in addition to the things that we've already shared about promoting accountability in all of our programs, we formerly had a probation department. We do not have a probation department anymore. It is now the Office of Court Support and Supervision. And I know that may not sound like a really big deal, but when you say to someone, I'm going to place you on probation, that sounds punitive, that sounds unsafe, that sounds like you're looking for a reason that I'm a bad person, you're looking for a reason to violate me, you're looking for a reason to send me to jail. When we say we'd like to assign you to one of our case managers in our OCSS office, it sounds more supportive. It sounds more inviting, and it sounds like it increases the willingness of a participant to work with one of our court staff members. Again, because our road now is joined together in terms of accountability and services, OCSS is part of the court. And so when someone isn't doing what they're supposed to do, OCSS is required to report that to us. So when someone doesn't follow through with treatment, we know that immediately because their case manager reports it to us. If they were down this social support services road, there's confidentiality, there's all kinds of things. Those caseworkers aren't going to tell us what someone is or isn't doing. So we changed the name of that office. I think a number of other courts are starting to make that change, seeing how important it is. Our former probation officers took on very willingly and wear very proudly the title of case manager. So that's one of the ways that we've removed some of the barriers to people seeking the help that they need, is by using terminology and verbiage that makes people feel safe, makes them feel comfortable. They don't need a bunch of legal language. We don't even know half the legal words we hear our colleagues say sometimes. At least I don't. Right? We need to break it down for people so they know what we're talking about. So that office transition has been a very big deal.
And statistically, we do know that people tend to comply with the orders of the court, which is a benefit for all of us because that means they're keeping our community safer when they understand what's expected of them, when they feel respected as they're engaging throughout the process. And so those are a lot of the goals that we are mindful of when we are working very diligently to promote accountability. We pride ourselves in Renton, I think, as a city, but especially as well here in Renton Municipal Court, with being ahead of the curve, and that includes with ensuring that we are carefully considering and continuing to offer alternatives to confinement. And this is a very popular concept that we're all learning about as a community more and more on a daily basis. But we're very proud that here in Renton, this is actually an option that we've had for many years. We offer a couple of alternatives to confinement, including electronic home monitoring, where an individual can serve their same term of incarceration, but they can do it from home. They are very closely monitored. We're talking about GPS monitoring. If they are leaving their home in a non-approved time, we as a court are automatically getting an alert from our electronic home detention department. So that same degree of accountability is still there, but we're allowing individuals to remain connected with restorative resources, with treatment, with employment, things that are going to ensure that they have a foundation for being productive within our community, and that they will be able to continue on and build their lives from there. We also have had for a long time, our TAD program, which is transdermal alcohol monitoring, and that is a 24/7 alcohol monitoring device. So if we have an individual who is facing, for example, a DUI charge, and we order that person not to drink rather than having them remain incarcerated so that we know if they're in score, they're not drinking, they can be maintaining their employment, their family obligations, and being at home, but being monitored every minute of every day. And if the TAD device senses any degree of alcohol, it'll give an immediate alert to the HC department, and then we as a court can intervene and make sure that they are complying with the orders of the court.
When we were first scheduled to do this, we were scheduled to be across the hallway for 15 minutes. And then we heard we had been moved over here for closer to 45, and we panicked. Look at that, Jessica.
Yeah.
Look at that. We're on our last slide. I said we can never talk for that long until we start talking about what we do, and then we get super excited, right? So the last thing we just want to share with each of you, if it isn't obvious today, what are our goals going forward? Our goals going forward is to continue to do what we're finding is working, to not do what we find is not working. But what we know is working are our therapeutic court programs. What we know is working is giving young drivers an alternative to mainstream court. What we know is working is giving nonviolent offenders access to services in our community court program. What we know is working is having a judge who can consistently hear our ability to proceed hearings and our restoration issues and the other complicated stuff. We know those things are working, and then so continued expansion of those programs and increased access to jail alternatives. And then the final goal of the year, which again is one of your projects.
We are very proud to announce we just launched our procedural justice action plan as a court. As I was speaking about briefly earlier, that we know that individuals, when they feel understood, when they feel valued and respected, and they feel that they've been treated with equity and inclusion and fairness when they're experiencing the court system, are much more likely to comply with the court orders, which means they're going to go get treatment, or they're going to serve their time on electronic monitoring, or do their community service, whatever it is that they've been ordered by the court to do in order to address the root cause of what brought them into the justice system. And so our goal is to work continuously to ensure equity and justice, but also to understand that we have to be mindful of how court users experience our justice system. And our procedural justice action plan is designed to address those needs specifically. I won't go line by line through the plan. As Kara mentioned, we are already very, very close to our time limit, and we would love the opportunity to have you down as guests in our court and to take a tour, and we can go through in much more in depth with you all of our programs as well as our procedural justice action plan. But the short version is that we have revamped our signage, and this is a work in progress, to make sure that when you contact our court, you can understand where to go and how to navigate the third floor in whatever language it is that you speak. That you can understand when you walk away from court with your paperwork in your hand, what is expected of you, when you need to come back to court, if you need to come back to court, and what you need to do to comply with your court order. We also completely revised our mission statement. We have a newly launched vision statement, which has never been part of our court before, and we're excited to remain focused on ensuring that our court is a court of accountability, equity, inclusion, and fairness for our community.
You did it in 10 minutes, Bonnie. I think she did. I know some of you have questions. Many of you we've met before, but if you also want a break, we understand that. When we say come down to the third floor and spend some time with us, we really do mean it, don't we, Mayor? We made him feel very welcome. We have candy and soda that we provide, not with city money, on our own budget. But please come down and see us. Please call us, email us, come down, ask questions. Come sit in our court proceedings if you'd like. So I know we make that invitation, but I hope that you know it's a genuine and authentic one. So did you have some questions before we?
We have time for a couple of questions
Okay.
from council.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So this is my first state of the court address and that sort of thing. And, just like the State of the Union, there's a couple of times I wanted to stand up and give you a little standing ovation and that sort of thing, although they do it way too much at the State of the Union. They say that necessity is the mother of invention, and whereas COVID obviously had a lot of downsides, I am really impressed with the things that you've done out of necessity that really just make a lot of sense, that make things more stream. I mean, the remote jury, just everything. I mean, I'm super impressed with all that. I have a ton of questions. I'm going to take you up on that, but the one that I do have in particular is in the community court program. How many are in that right now? What's the typical size or whatever when you talk about
The average core participation level on a weekly basis is probably between 10 and 12. The referrals to the program are a lot higher than that. But in order to be, first of all, you have to be invited. So both the city and defense the city has to agree that you're eligible to be invited. And there's a lot of factors that go into that about your willingness to really work a program. The defense then asks you if you want to be invited. And the reality is, if you're looking to get out for your next fix, you don't want to hear about for the next 12 months, they have to come to court every week
Okay.
in the beginning. And then as you comply, your requirement to attend becomes every other week, every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks. You can graduate as early as 6 months. So what we're finding is that many of the people that we thought would be enticed by the dismissal of their charges, they are not. They would rather do 5 days. They'd rather do 5 days, 10 days, even 20 days, and then be out and be done with us, right? It's only the ones who say, I don't care if it takes 12 months. I don't care if I have to come every week. I do not want to live my life this way. And now what we're finding, I'm hoping we're finding, is those people are talking to each other, right? They're down doing their community service at the food bank, and someone's driving by going, what are you doing community service? And then they get into conversation about why they're doing it. So we had to start really small because we were only virtual for most of the first year. And many of the people who were committing crimes in Renton were not from Renton. We learned a lot about that in this program. I think I always assumed they were, but many people at the landing, many people in for business, many people in for vacations. And so requiring people from Edmonds, from Kent, from Tacoma to be here personally every week would have been a showstopper for most of them. So allowing that to be hybrid has helped. But I think, truthfully, I think that 30 to 40 participants at a time is probably about what we can handle, but we won't limit it. We'll just add a second docket.
Okay.
So I don't think we're ever going to be in a position where we have to limit the participation. We'll just have to add calendars. But they're really, really fascinating people. One of them hangs out upstairs a little bit. Jeremy, he's from Maple Valley. He's homeless. And the prosecutor said, you know what? The court's open. It's open to the public. Come sit in the back of the courtroom during the day. You can get cooled off and be around people who care about you. And he took her up on that. And he was here every day last week.
Okay.
Just sitting there, not causing any trouble. But he met the mayor and met a few other city leaders. And anyway.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you so much, judges, for your presentation. Very informative and very inspirational. I do have a question regarding the youth traffic court. And is it set up for just first-time offender, or if there's a young driver who offends again, repeat offenders, how is that taken to place?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because you get sort of one opportunity to go through the youth traffic court program. Now, that's not to say it could not be a student maybe who has an infraction with a committed finding in their past. So that doesn't prevent you from being able to participate. Everyone gets a chance. But if you do sort of, it's a use it or lose it chance. And so it's for 16 and 17-year-old drivers at the time the infraction was committed. So if you just turned 18 and you were 17 when you got your ticket, you're still welcome to come in and have your case heard through the youth traffic court program. But yes, you get one opportunity. And it's really interesting, because one thing that we have found and we've experienced is, once we have these students come in and they have their case heard, they want to stay. And so they've actually been joining the team, and they've been coming back and saying, well, can I come be a juror the next time? And we'll say yes. And then they'll come be a juror, and they'll say, well, can I be a mentor the next time? And their participation just grows from there. So I should more clearly say they get one chance to have their case heard, but we seem to sort of just keep everybody as we go along.
They presented a legal argument to her recently that if they've graduated from high school, but have not yet started college, they are still eligible to participate in the program. So in September, you will have a few students.
We graduated 2 seniors, and we had a graduation celebration for them. And they said, wait a minute, we're coming back in September. So they get to come for our September hearings only. But in October, they have to go on to their outstanding finding selves that they're called.
We've got time.
Nice when they don't want to leave.
We have time for one more
Okay.
question. Councilmember O'Halloran.
I don't actually have a question. I just have a comment. I've been through this presentation once before, and every time it's just jaw-dropping what you guys do and what you're able to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here in Renton and doing this on behalf of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Since Councilmember O'Halloran had a comment, I will let Councilmember Rivera have the last question.
Actually, mine is also a comment.
goodness.
I'm so sorry. I know you love me and hate it, but as a criminal justice educator who hears a lot of fear mongering, especially around accountability and going back to tactics that we've used for hundreds of years regarding incarceration and punitive styles, my heart is leaping with joy. This has been the highlight of my early months, early week, whatever you want to say, but I will be immediately emailing both of you for a tour, to come hang out, to come see us in action. I am so proud of the work that we are doing, and to have such informed, educated judges who really understand what restorative justice means. Thank you so very much.
I'm so glad we came now. It's fabulous. It's our first one of these too, you know.
I told you no hard questions. And with that, committee of the whole is adjourned. We will reconvene in 10 minutes as a full council.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to leave these.